that's why I said also the soft skills are very important, because I think they're going to be applicable also in the next roles, in the next rotations.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our CFI FinPod podcast. Today, we are doing another member spotlight, one of my favorite series where we get to know the members of CFI. And today, I'm here with Flavio Simoncini, and he joins us from not Italy, but Kraków, Poland today.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited to have you on our podcast. You're going to be one of our first, I think you're our first guest from Poland. But with the advent of technology, I'm able to kind of have you here and talk to anyone from all sorts of different parts of the world. But I found you on LinkedIn, and I was combing through, and I saw that you had completed, I think, our beta certification. But I also saw that you were in FP&A. And I think that you're so well-rounded in all of the kind of areas that CFI is active in. And yeah, I just wanted to sit down with you and get to know your story. Because as I've always said, and I'm like a broken record, I find all of our CFI podcasts to be the world's most accessible coffee conversation. So just as if I wanted to talk to someone in New York or London when I was graduating university or when I was looking to switch careers, it's different now that I can go and listen to a podcast and I could listen to episodes like this and get insights. Whereas before I would actually have to physically go and meet the person because video conferencing was not really normal back then. It'd be kind of weird, like, 10 years ago, if you're like, yeah, could I have a coffee chat with you? And then like send them a Google Meet link or Skype. But to get us started, I was just wondering, where did you get your interest in finance? Did you go to school for it from university, or did you get your interest in finance growing up through parents or different types of exposure? How did you get started?
All right. Let's say while I was in high school, I had like a slight passion. Like I knew already well where I was going, so not to finance specifically, but it's like, okay, I want to start studying when I'm gonna go to the university. I'm gonna start studying economics/management, business, let's say, not specifically finance, but finance always been like a, let's say, a part of like business that was intriguing, and like because I didn't fully understand it. And so but when I started university, I didn't find a specific faculty that was like finance, so a specific course just for finance. There were like more broad courses, so there were like different, let's say, curriculums inside a course that maybe they were like maybe going forward towards like, I don't know, more finance oriented, but like they weren't specific for finance, like I can find out today. So I just took let's say more business management course, and I then actually arriving working in finance, it was like more or less a coincidence. It wasn't planned because I follow my interest, my main interest after university, during university, and that's also after, was and still is to work and gain experience abroad, like study and let's say experience in general. So I did an exchange program while I started in Rome, in my home university, La Sapienza, and then I studied in Germany. And after that experience, I said, all right, I want to continue this experience and I want to change again. And so after graduating, coming back to Rome and graduating in bachelor, I said, all right, let's go somewhere else. And I went to the Netherlands. And I had an amazing time there. Like I spent 1.5 years doing my master's, and I studied like business strategic innovation management was the course name, but so it wasn't related to finance. And after finishing it, I said, all right, I want to stay abroad again, and I started applying different jobs, and I found this job, and I found this great opportunity, and it's in finance, but I didn't plan it. I had an interest, let's say, but I just by different means I arrived here.
And do you speak, so you studied in Germany for a little bit. Do you speak German and do you also speak Dutch?
Well, actually, I also like languages, so I don't speak, but I'm working on it. I'm taking courses. I took courses while I was in Germany, and also while I was in the Netherlands. I took courses of German and Dutch in the respective countries. Also took Chinese actually back then when I was in university, because I was. But the problem is that every time I had always something else that interrupted my learning path in terms of languages. So I didn't fully master a language. That's also why I said, like recently, I said, all right, and I have to set a goal, a specific language, and learn it. And that language for the moment is German. So I'm taking German courses at the moment, and my focus is to master German for the moment.
I could understand what you mean, because so I took I guess like my native language is more or less English, but I speak Korean because I am Korean. And in university, I took Mandarin Chinese, and I was fairly good at it, but I don't remember any of it now. But I also took Spanish because I was really interested in that, and I was fairly decent at it because my best friend growing up was Mexican. But now I'm like, okay, like if I want to just invest in one language, I should just pick one or the other. But it's kind of the idea of just being curious, right? And you seem like you are curious in an international type of way. And so I would say, like, so did you do an internship from your master's program?
Yes. Like I had opportunity, thanks to my professor, to do, let's say, an internship that it was related more to the thesis. So then the last part of the master that I attended, and I worked in a Dutch company. I studied in the north of the Netherlands, so it wasn't Amsterdam or another, let's say, big city. It was more a university city, and the university had different partnerships with different companies. And this company, since I was studying, and my professor was related to like intellectual property. He had an agreement with a Dutch company, an innovative company. It's called Avebe, and like related to starch, extracting starch from potatoes and producing vegetable-based products, so a replacement to animal-based, for example, like candies or other dairies, for example. I joined the intellectual property team, and I wrote my thesis on the, let's say, means of communications and problems that can arise within a company that especially treats as this real big value as an intellectual property. So they have different certifications inside the company, and patent filing is a problem, especially when communicating with customers and with before let's say exposing themselves to the customer sometime. And so also within the company, talking with the commercial side of the company and the intellectual property sides sometimes results in a struggle, because the intellectual property they wants to keep the secrets, let's say, as much as possible, while the commercial sides wants to attract the customer, and so they need to like expose themselves a bit. And so I studied this phenomenon.
And so take me through how you went from landing your first full-time job to where you are today.
Well, actually, I'm still doing my first job. This is my first job. I started more or less slightly more than 6 months ago.
From the internship?
No. I finished the internship. Let's say more than a year ago. I finished in end of January, and I graduated at the same time. And then I started applying different programs. I wanted to stay in the Netherlands, but also I applied in general also other countries, and that's why I arrived here in Poland. And I found this incredible program because it's a graduate program, so it means that it's an opportunity for graduates to have a broader understanding of how a subject works, in this case finance, but there are of course different graduate programs in different companies and in different subjects. And the great thing about this program is that there are different rotations, so I can like understand how finance works in different from different perspectives. So in this case, the first year is focused on P&A, while the second year supply chain finance, and third year commercial finance. So in order to allow us to have at the end a broader understanding, especially in a big company, how finance works. And so I applied through LinkedIn, and I did all the tests and the interviews. And in the end, we were 5 finalists, and we joined the program. And we are still doing well. We are, let's say, just started, but we are very excited to continue the program.
And then, so did you spend a couple of months in the FP&A portion, and then a couple of months in supply chain finance, and then a couple of months in commercial?
No, because like the program is divided in 3 years. So the first year is going to be just P&A. So I'm still in the first year, and the second year supply chain finance, and in the third year commercial finance. So I'm specifically in my role is let's say a new role, because usually what the company did in the previous years was that the previous generations, they were onboarding the next generations. And it's also happened with my generation, with me as an exception, because my role was recently created because they merged different departments, and I'm more in the nowadays, like I'm in administrating the forecasting part and the strategic finance part. So, and there was nobody in the previous rotation that could have onboard me. So at the beginning, I was struggled a bit, but in the end, I'm still learning, of course. I just joined, but let's say I learned a lot of things.
And so, how's your first? It hasn't been quite a year yet, right?
No, not yet.
So how's the first kind of several months been? Like, what is your day-to-day like? Do you find yourself using and applying a lot of the things that you learned in your master's program, or like, is there a training program that's gotten you on board? Tell us what a day in the life has been like for you in this role.
All right, for sure, I would say that it's still challenging, but at the beginning it was more challenging for me because I didn't strictly study finance, and I got into. That's also why I was surprised when I got in the finance program. But I can say that I learned a lot of things, because let's say nowadays I have the opportunity to see the pipelines in the company, and from a European level, because we in Krakow we just administrate the European part. But I have the let's say opportunity to see all like pipelines of the companies, and the company is very big, it's pretty complex. And so I can see all the entirety of how the company, and since it's very sales-based, sales-oriented, the company, I can see the whole, like the different contracts closed every day, and the ones that are, let's say, soon to be in different pipelines. So like we have a shorter pipeline and a longer one, and so we can also track the conversions. So let's say these days I'm more focused on reporting the new wins that are recently closed, and tracking the conversion. So how many wins from the pipeline we actually finalize. But also, as I said before, I'm involved in the forecasting and pricing, sales projections in the company. So my role, let's say, I have 2 different bosses, so 2 stakeholders to report to, and it was challenging at first, and it still is sometimes, especially because I'm very close to the management, to the top level management, and I'm also very happy to be here, because especially for a person that never had, let's say, aside from the internship that I've done, a proper job experience, it's very useful for me to be in close contact with these kind of like managers and directors, because yes, of course, sometimes and maybe let's say more often than not, the ideas are flowing very fast, and so there are different tasks, and it's very challenging. So problems are arising very fast. But at the same time, since there are a lot of problems, they require a lot of solutions, and sooner or later the solution has to be found, and so like I learned a lot. I'm learning a lot continuously, and I'm very happy to be here because let's say maybe a standard job. I consider myself very lucky because maybe a standard job would take longer for me to get in this position to have this kind of relationship with the like top management, and so like to have also this broader picture of the how finance works.
Tell us about the company that you work for.
Yes,
a little bit of background context. Yeah.
I work for like these American companies called Ecolab, and what it does, we are like the leading company for water treatment, and also recycling water for different companies and in different business areas, such as like in industry, like different like metal production, or like from restaurant, and we also provide hygiene products on different scales, so from hospitals, clinics, to hotels, restaurants, and different industries, chemical industry, energy industries, and also, and for example, if I can make an example related to a big data related to data that and the computer that we use every day. So we have customers such as like Google, that they have data centers, and for data centers they need a lot of water, and our products in order to they need our products, or products like ours, to reduce the consumption of waters in order to cool down the systems.
And do you have any clients out in Vancouver? When you say water treatment, I think of a lot of industry here in Vancouver.
Yeah, for sure. Like we have, for sure we have them, because like I'm not unfortunately I'm not responsible for the US side. I'm responsible for the European side. So we track in my team and of course in our office in Kraków just the European projects, and but for sure, like in Canada and in the US, I would say that the company is the leader for this kind of industry, 100%.
This is going to be really interesting because this is a product, a service that every company needs, especially today as we become more and more data reliant. But at the same time, I've never heard of this before, which is super interesting. But again, it's an American-based company, and so this is going to be probably, maybe you're going to be in America after this.
I hope so. To be honest,
what's the place that you want to go to most?
Well, I would like to go to an English-speaking country, so to say, but like I'm very open. I would, because I lived in different countries in Europe, and my next goal would be just to have an experience outside. Let's say I would like to go very far just to have like a totally different experience. So either like US, Canada, but also Australia would be very interesting.
Ooh.
So let's see what happens. But I'm
California, big, wonderful place. Maybe between New York and California, where would you want to go?
If I had to choose, I would choose New York. I'm more like cold temperature person.
Yeah, and like a walkable city.
Yeah. Like, but as I said, I'm very open, so I wouldn't mind moving elsewhere.
And would you say that in FP&A, the bulk of your work is done in Excel and like PowerPoint, or do you have any other tools that you often use?
Well, yeah, we do like the majority of our work in Excel and Power BI, Power Query. We do a lot of like ad hoc analysis. So usually we have our standard, let's say, also slides or maybe presentations and visuals that the management requires. But occasionally, for example, like now we're doing the first quarter presentation report, and in this case, since it's bigger and there are different stakeholders, they are require different ad hoc views, and so yes, we use a lot of like Excel and Power BI for that.
And so in your role in FP&A, I find that kind of half the role, or at some companies, it's like a completely different function where they have planning and budgeting and forecasting in one team, and then they have ad hoc analysis in a separate. But because that seems to be a huge bulk of the work, do you find that you rely on? Actually, this is an interesting way to put it. When you're doing all of those ad hoc analyses and being that key business partner that helps inform strategic decision making, what do you find more difficult to kind of learn and practice? The managing of stakeholders and meeting their expectations and learning how to work with them? Or do you find it more difficult and more challenging to learn the technical skills to actually provide that analysis? So it's kind of like, do you find the soft skill to be more difficult to kind of master and practice, or the technical?
Well, it's a very interesting question because especially before joining the program, I had a different opinion respect to the one I have now, because I thought that I needed more technical skills. Well, for sure they are needed, but I think that technical skills are a thing that since I'm in contact with those tools every day, is a normal, let's say, a standard learning. So using Excel, Power BI, and other tools every day, for sure it requires study also outside work. That's also why a beta certification was needed, especially. But also, I would say more from my perspective, soft skills. So like understanding what is needed and how to communicate. Especially the communication part is the core, I would say, in my set of duties, is maybe the core part. So in order to understand, but of course also to communicate at what point are we collecting data, for example, or at what point are we doing this kind of process respect to another process, because being very close to the top management has a consequence that I have a lot of requests, and sometimes, more often than not, they are overlapping. So while I'm doing something, something else comes, and so they ask me to prioritize something else. So, and in that moment, I need to make a choice, and the communication comes in. So I say like, all right, should I finish this first, or maybe should I prioritize the other thing? So I would say the majority of the work, or of, let's say, getting acquainted to it, is working on my soft skills, especially from let's say zero perspective. But for sure, of course, the technical skills are needed. But the soft skills, I would say, they're more needed, because after all, like, we are just interacting between people, so we need to know what the other ones.
And then it's interesting, the idea of a rotational program where each role that you rotate through lasts a full year, because the ones that I'm most familiar with are generally at banks, and we'll have, like 4 to at most kind of 5 months in each desk, so to speak. So for example, at a traditional kind of investment bank, we'd have someone go through, like a bond desk, equity sales, structured products, and then you only get to spend like 4 months at each. And it's very, very short period of time. You do 3, and then you hopefully have a spot to go to full time. But 1 year is a much more reasonable and realistic timeline for you to actually get an understanding of what the work is like. Do you enjoy it? Would you do well at it? So you have the next 2 years of your career planned out for you. In your next role, what do you kind of hope to take out of supply chain finance? Because I've kind of been a little bit exposed to supply chain finance. I used to work at this place called Restaurant Brands International, which is the company that owns Burger King, Popeyes, and Tim Hortons. You might be familiar with Burger King because they have quite a few locations out in Europe. But supply chain finance is also very, very data heavy, very analytically intense. Are you looking more forward to that role or the commercial side? Because to have the next 2 years of your career kind of planned out is something that I'm very unfamiliar with.
Well, yeah, I think like with the also with me because like also my opinion because usually while I was skimming through different job applications, I also applied to different to other graduate programs, and usually they were shorter, so like maybe 2 years or maybe 1 year and a half. But this was the only one that I found. It was like 3 years, so it was like, and I would say also because I don't know, I didn't attend all the graduate programs, but I would say in our case, the company puts us in very, let's say, top positions. In this case, I would say my position also because it was a new position, also it wasn't available before. Required maybe I was also surprised because maybe a more experienced person would have been more suited to it in the at the beginning, so that's why I struggled a bit at the beginning. But I thought that it was normal, especially for a person with, let's say, very little experience. But yeah, like supply chain, from what I heard, I didn't start yet. I will start in September. It's very data oriented, and yeah, they told us that is the other generations that already went through it, that let's say it's pretty challenging, and also and it's completely different, of course, from P&A. But yeah, still I'm very interested in it because I also 1 year, as we said, it's a lot of time. So after a while, it's already, let's say, I'm very getting acquainted to it. I'm very getting used to the process in P&A. So maybe after a while, a person could say, okay, I know it's everything, but it's not everything of 100%. But I know more or less how this is working. So then there is the desire to change. So yeah.
It's just like as soon as you get a little bit comfortable, you have to move to the next one.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a feeling. I was going to go because like also the other people, they say like as soon as you get like comfortable with the role, you're gonna change and start all over in a different branch where like the things that you learned before are not always very relevant. But I would say that that's why I said also the soft skills are very important because I think they're going to be applicable also in the next roles, in the next rotations.
And when I always ask, I guess, these questions because I'm really curious to know, but it's going to be a bit different for you because usually I say like, what are your kind of goals? What you're looking forward to in the next year, next 3 years? But since you have the next kind of 2 years kind of laid out in front of you, just general career wise, where do you hope to see yourself in 5 years? If you play this podcast back for yourself in 5 years, where do you hope to be?
Well, all right. So I'm 25 now. So in 5 years, I would be like 30, and maybe 31 because like this year I'm gonna turn 26. But I would like to be abroad just for that because that's my desire. So I would like to at least have done an experience outside Europe. So in terms of like living abroad and working, of course. In terms of like career wise, I hope I would progress. This is a very big start and big opportunity, as I said before. So I hope like after this program, there's going to be a follow up, and I'm going to progress even more. So yeah, but for the moment, that's also for the moment I like finance. I didn't experience the different nuances of finance yet, and of course in 3 years I will not experience all the nuances, but for sure I will have a better understanding respect to now. But yeah, I would like to be in a, I don't know, maybe let's see, like for the moment I like being in a corporate environment, in a very big corporation, and I think it's very useful for beginners to have an understanding, especially with the complexity, because there are different divisions inside the company, so how everything fits together, and sometimes it doesn't fit, so we need to find a solution. So a lot of problem solving skills is needed, and I think that's going to benefit me in the future in other maybe possible different roles, also in different kinds of companies, maybe the smaller companies. But yeah, for the moment, my request would be, my desire would be to stay abroad and to interact with different people, and that's my wish.
And for people that are listening, I always want to get some personal things that they might be able to relate to you on, because a lot of people are going to be listening and say, you know, I want to be in a role that Flavio is. There's going to be a lot of people that say, you know, I wonder how he got into that role. There might be people that kind of reach out to you here and there, but apart from work, what do you enjoy doing? What are your hobbies?
Well, as I said, I really like languages. I'm very keen on learning new languages. Now I'm, as I said, one at a time. So for that, and also I think like sports has to be a part of my life, because after a while, after hours watching the Excel and the Power BI data, I need some physical activities. So in Europe, let's say especially in the southern part, we play paddle. That is like a sort of tennis, and I'm
Like
playing
pickleball?
paddle. It's let's say similar to squash. I play also squash, but it's a different let's say version of tennis. So instead of two players, we play in four, and the court is smaller and there's walls around it, and it's very popular in Spain. It was invented, I think, in Spain, and in Italy.
Have you heard of pickleball?
Pickleball? I've heard it, but I never
I think you would love it.
I have never seen anything any match, but yeah, like usually I always like to try, like both in different I like to experience. So living abroad also comes with a full package of like experiencing what's out there, and so like sports, experience, traveling, languages. But yeah, I'm very curious, and I would like to continue to do that.
Oh my gosh, wonderful. Well, if you come to America, you're going to discover something called pickleball, and I think you'll really love it. It's been really popular for several years now, but it's kind of like a cross between, I would say, tennis and table tennis, like ping pong.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're a lover of squash or any racket related sport, you'll love it.
Yeah, also it's fun because like as different companies, we also have like our ping pong relax
internal teams.
Yeah. And I'm very I really enjoy football. Football like as a small game, but at least in Italy with my friends, I always play that. So every time I see one football table, I'm always going to play that.
Ooh. Well, I can't think of a better note to end our podcast on, as we get to know everyone that is a member of CFI and introduce people globally. Thank you so much for joining me on our podcast today. I can't wait to kind of see where you go in the next 3-4 years. Maybe we'll see you in America.
Let's see. I hope so.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. FinPod is brought to you by Corporate Finance Institute, the #1 rated online provider of finance and banking training, certifications, and productivity tools.